Hello, everyone, and welcome to another great episode of the Jason Howell Company Speaker Series Zoominars. In fact, this is a very important episode. We're marching towards the holiday season, and it turns out not everyone is as joyful during this time of year as media and the community may actually make you think you are. And so, how do we deal with that? What do we do with that reality? We have a special guest today, Miss Lisa McFarland, who is part of the Grief Gurus launching next year and an author of The Healing Path, both parts 1 and 2, who's had really specific experiences to bring to this topic and soon a community to surround people with the kind of caring that they might need during not only the holidays, but throughout the year. So, before we ask Lisa a bunch of questions, let's just welcome her to the Zoominar. Lisa, welcome to the Zoominar. How has your day been so far?
Hello, Jason. Thank you so much. My day's been amazing, actually, so far. It started very early, as it usually does, and so far, so good. Just happy to be supporting others and also navigating my own journey, and just grateful to be here connecting with you and your members this morning and your clients.
Well, that is your world, isn't it? Supporting others for a long, long
Yes.
time.
Yes.
I'm glad you're here. I'm specifically glad you're here during this time of year. In our firm, we've had a couple of deaths recently, right
Mm.
here in November. As I wrote recently in our letter to stakeholders, this is the second year in a row that we've had deaths in November. So it can be a tough time for people, just as an idea, but we specifically know clients of ours that are experiencing loss and grief right now. And so it's just so helpful and very kind of you to come and share some of your experiences with us. Thank you so much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share a screen with a slight presentation that I created for this, and hopefully it'll be a good guide for all of us as we have this conversation. But once again, Lisa, thank you. Our topic today, holiday healing and family, how to stay connected through grief. Before we get into the Q&A, let's just have a word from our sponsor. And our sponsor, of course, is Jason Howell Company. Jason Howell Company is a family wealth management firm. That means we do all things financial for all family members. Our specialty is multi-generational family planning, financial planning. And we don't do this alone. We work with a team of experts. We surround our clients with a team of experts. Experts like Lisa McFarland, because it's not just financial, it's life. And sometimes life includes grief. So once again, we're so happy to have Lisa here. Our firm is based in Fairfax, Virginia, but we serve clients nationwide. To learn more about the Jason Howell Company, just go to jasonhowell.com. And with that, we have Lisa and her background, a very brief bio about some of the experiences that Lisa has had over the years, which really positions her as someone to speak to some of this. And so, Lisa, you've done a number of things in your career. You've also experienced a number of things in your life that have positioned you to be keenly aware of grief. Talk a little bit about that journey from early days and a little bit to how you've transitioned to today.
Certainly, Jason, and thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I was born an empath. There's no getting around that. And for most of my life, I thought that that was my weak spot. Turns out I think it's my superpower, but it took me quite a while to understand that and to embrace it. As a young mom, I lost two of my babies, my daughter and my only daughter, my firstborn and my only daughter, Alexis, was born in 1996 and died 13 months later of basically a bone marrow failure disease. And also my second son, Emmanuel, who was born in 2002, died on the day of his birth. I have a living son, Zachary, who's the absolute light and heartbeat of our lives. He's very special, very specially gifted, as my husband says, but also has put our feet to the fire in more ways than I ever wanted or knew were possible. But as a result of that, I live a very kind of, as you said, aware. I am keenly aware of the experiences not only that we're conscious of carrying, but also those that we're not conscious of carrying. And so I took the grief that I had when my beautiful daughter died, and I got to work as I know how to do. I became a pediatric intensive care unit nurse and did that for a number of years. And when I found out that my son was going to have such special needs, I also decided that I needed to step away from the bedside in the PICU environment because it was a little bit difficult, as you can imagine, intensely sick kids at work, sick kid at home. And I did consulting, legal nurse consulting for a number of years, and essentially have evolved into a space now where I'm just making it my business to create a space where folks can come for support, for healing, for witnessing, which is a big part of healing, grief and loss, and trying to just really make that more accessible, both financially and also logistically. We all are burdened with very tight schedules and doing things in a lot of different ways and capacities. And we find that when we're trying to heal from grief, we need to check in on that part of ourselves on a very regular basis. So whether money has gotten in the way of getting support or maybe just having the time in one's schedule, the community that we've created is just going to meet a lot of those needs, and it's not going to be for everybody, but I'm very proud of what we've created, and that pretty much brings me to present day.
Yeah, and what stood out to me listening to you describe your life's journey, which is we're talking over a couple of decades here, is how much your real life had to integrate with that grief at the same time. You still had to be an adult. You still had to work. You still had to manifest. That's part of the journey, isn't it?
Certainly. And that word integrate, Jason, it's a really powerful word. And I share that a lot in our community and when we're discussing grief, because we have this experience where pain becomes the dominant experience of remembering our loved one. And what we're inviting folks to do, and what we did in our healing circle over the weekend, I think you shared that with your audience, is to really understand that pain is part of it, but let's not forget the joy. Let's not forget the gifts and the love that was shared when that person was here, and that we continue to share if we're so able to integrate the pain. And I think the experience generally is it hurts too much to let the pain near me. So I armor up, I run, I hide, I get busy, as I did for like 2 decades, running marathons, changing careers, getting more degrees. And really, at the end of the day, what we find is if we are able to navigate this integration piece, it allows us to have this amazingly fulfilling but balanced experience of our life. And we don't have to let our loved ones go. We don't have to be without them in this moment. There are a lot of ways that we can involve them in our current day experience, but that integration piece is critical. And you really nailed it.
Integration. I will remember that. Okay, well, let's go to the Q&A a little bit, and here we have some questions that we put together for this talk, but I think as we talk, other questions may come up. Let me start with the topic of our specific conversation today, and then we'll go from there. So the first question I have is, what happens to people's grief during the holiday season? And let me edit it a little bit. Maybe what's supposed to happen, if you're allowed to use that word, and what actually does happen.
Yeah, so the supposed to happen, with all due respect, right? We
Mm-hmm.
want to throw that one out the window because it's just not real. And the moment that we live by comparison in any capacity, not just with our grief, but especially with our grief, we're setting ourselves up for a bad experience, because grief, our experience and our journey with our pain at having lost someone so dear to us, is as unique as the relationship we had with that person. So, one of the pitfalls that we can fall into while we're grieving is to compare. So we want to stay away from that. But I'm glad you brought it up because it gives us a chance to sort of address that. And the main part of the question, as far as what happens, during the holidays with our grief, man, it becomes inescapable. My experience personally and also professionally in working with a lot of folks who are dealing with grief, whether that grief is, as some of mine is, decades old, or whether it's just fresh. We live in a part of the world that does not value the process of healing or death or grief or aging or wisdom or all of those evolutionary things that there are other parts of the world that really value that. And that's just not something that we tend to do. So we find ways to not integrate or not experience even a lot of the weighted pain that sort of waits for us when we are going to pay attention. So what happens is when we get into holidays, we find that it just becomes inescapable. Everywhere we turn, we're faced with our history of traditions, whether it's music, it's a particular cuisine, it's family traditions, it's movies, it's in every string of media, whether it's a little decoration down in the bottom of the corner of your screen that you're video feed is sharing, but we just become literally what I feel is defenseless. All the strategies we've been imparting during the year go down the drain, and um, we can either relive our grief if we've never really dealt with it, or we just really become vulnerable to um, grief, what I would call grief triggers or grief bursts, where we're gearing up to do something that we really enjoy. And when we show up there, we can't get out of the car, or someone asks us how we're doing, and we find ourselves overwhelmed with emotion. So, to answer your question, what happens during the holidays is what we have been perhaps somewhat effective at managing
Huh.
during the rest of the year.
Sure.
It all goes out the window, and people become extreme, just bereft, and feel alone and isolated and unseen. And that can lead to some really, really challenging outcomes.
So you mentioned unseen, and I think that's such an important word. The next question I have alludes to the reality that most of us kind of know that there is some of that going on. I had read a book in our profession. There's a wonderful woman who wrote a book called No Longer Awkward,
Mm.
and it was meant for financial advisors to be able to respond when they answer that phone call and they hear about a death in the family, in this case, their family of clients. But here in the holiday season, people end up having to try to navigate that too. And so that second question is more than just family members. How can family members navigate grief that they know is there and present? But how can others who hear about an event in someone's life that they care about, whether it's a client, a friend, or a family member, how can they navigate that during the holiday season?
Mhm. Such a beautiful question because it comes from such a caring place, Jason, and many folks, definitely my experience is they won't approach loved ones about their potential experience of increased pain or sort of more visceral grief because it activates their own
Hmm.
unchecked
Sure.
experience.
Sure.
So as someone who's grieving, as their experience of grief becomes more intense, what we see is that actually supports become less available. So it's a terrible um
Cycle.
yeah, it's a terrible thing to happen at the same time. And one of the most powerful ways to support someone who may have lost a loved one this past year, or just anyone. You and I have known each other for many years,
Yeah.
and started as friends and became, had now this business client where you're supporting my own family and our journey and things like that. And about my children, so even if we weren't in regular contact, let's say you wanted to just reach out to me because, hey, I'm aware that this is a hard time. It's literally nothing more than that. It's a text, it's a phone call, it's a handwritten card if you're so inspired, just saying, I know this must be hard for you. I don't know how I can best support you, but I wanted you to know that I care. And that's all that it takes. And what we see is at the time of burial and at the time of death, again, culturally, we're sort of allowed, as much as our benefits may change in our workplace over time and things tend to go away, we still have this allotment for, 3 bereavement days or something a
Yeah,
year. And
yeah,
so
that's all you need.
yeah, for whatever reason, our companies tend to honor this and our employer tends to honor this. But what I would say is when that time of acknowledgement and intense support is over and people need to go back to their lives in a way that we're not able when we're grief stricken, it gets deathly and deafeningly quiet. So at any point, whether it's a month later or if it's at the holiday season, and someone who's lost a spouse or a child or a friend, a parent, in any capacity, we're not, what I have found in the grief space is that we're not real particular about the mechanism of support, but we respond very well to any outreach that we receive. So again, if texting is your method, texting is fine. What I do love about sending a card is that it allows the person to receive our message in the privacy of their own quiet space. So when we open cards, we don't tend to be rushing. When we check messages, we're scrolling, we're multitasking. When we open a red envelope in the mail or a white envelope or whatever it is, we tend to give that our attention. So that's if you really wanted to do something nice for someone, send them a handwritten card and just say, I see you. I know this is hard. I'm here. If there's anything I can do to ease your burden. And that really goes, quite a long way.
And people recognize how infrequent they receive personal mail in the first place, too.
That's absolutely true.
So helpful. I know your time is limited, and so it's such an opportunity to have you for questions. I hate for you to go away. I wish you had 6 hours with us because I could do 6 hours with you. But let me write or go to this next question, and I think you've touched on it, so you can answer it briefly. Does grief ever go away?
I don't think so. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the first person I heard say this, although I don't know if it's her quote, is an author and speaker named Glennon Doyle. And she said, you know, pain is the receipt that we have for loving.
Wow. Okay.
And that landed several years ago with me. And I do share that because our love and our pain are a commensurate experience. And if we don't allow that pain to ride with us through the rest of our lives and be part of our journey, and of course, we need to learn how to carry it in a way that's safe for us, that's nurturing. But if we try to snuff it out or ignore it, um, we're almost we're almost snuffing out part of the love and the relationship at the same time. So I don't think grief goes away. I don't think it's healthy to hope that it does or to hold that out as a goal. We don't want it to have a place in our lives that is prohibitive of our own personal growth and thriving. But if we stop missing someone who was so dear to us, then we leave a different kind of a hole that's hard to fill.
People are going to be quoting you in the future, Lisa. Um, our love and our pain are a commensurate experience. I think that's something to hang on to and sit
Thank
with
you.
for a while.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Speaking of your quotability, tell us a little bit about the books you've written. And you may as well blend right into also the community that you've created that is launching next year.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I put together some key concepts that I think have really helped me in my own healing journey. And just sharing with your listeners, about 4 years ago, I walked away from, not all at the same time, but in that same year, I had married the love of my life as a young person. We were married for 25 years. We experienced all of these losses together, and we've since got married again. So it's a
Woo!
happy ending. But about 4 years ago, I had been, divorcing that's my husband, and walked away from a corporate career that I worked really hard to build and cultivate. And I found myself really with no more masks and sort of nowhere to run. And along during that time, I had started a blog, and I had also started a podcast called The Healing Path, which is still available, but it is not as current as the work I'm doing now. But my books, the Healing Path, they come in three parts, and it's basically a summary of some of these key levers that I've learned to pull, not with the intention of thinking that everyone will benefit from all of them, but with the hope and sort of prayer that something will land. Learning how to install a stillness practice, for example, learning how to just sit still. If we can't sit still with what we're dealing with when the SHIT is not hitting the fan, then we have no hope for doing it when it's tough. Learning how to look at what our experience is, learning how to not just experience gratitude, but cultivate gratitude, learning how to be creative. These are all things that I've woven through a three-part series, and two of those books are now available. And moving into the Grief Gurus, which is this virtual healing community, we have created this specifically for women in its very foundation. However, there is room to build that out for male community members as well. But we thought we would start with what we know best. And as I mentioned, in the beginning of our chat, this is a place for folks who don't have $200 a week to spend on therapy and don't have a way to necessarily get help during office hours. The community, the Grief Gurus, is built to help folks dip into their own healing and build that healing path in the company of others at your own convenience at a price point that makes it very feasible. And we have live events, regular meetings. I do a regular kind of weekly meditation to help with that stillness piece. My colleague does a weekly live event as well, and we just are getting together and moving through this journey at a pace that feels comfortable and safe, but allowing people to really witness and share, because what we've learned is that is where our healing is most available and where we can really invest in creating that journey for ourselves. We talked about grief not going away, but we don't want it to be the whole story. And when we're around others who can say, maybe my loss isn't exactly like yours, but here's what we know for sure. We need to be able to set boundaries. We need self-care habits that maximize and operationalize things like nutrition and rest and social, engagements with people that fill our spirit. So we're sharing experiences so that we can strengthen one another and carry our grief, but not have it be the whole story. So that's what we're doing.
Carry our grief, but not have it be the whole story. Okay, we're getting them all here. I know this must be hard for you. I want you to know that I care. We can carry that into the holiday season for the people that we engage. Thank you for that. That's very helpful.
Yes.
Of course, we do need to remember our love and our pain are commensurate experiences. We need to learn how to carry it. And at this point, Lisa, I'd like to know if there's anything else you'd like to leave us with as we walk towards the heart of the holiday season. What's one thing that we should cultivate as we go into this time?
It's a beautiful question. And it's funny because I was thinking what I haven't said, and I do want to say, is the gift that we can give ourselves and others is grace. Let's give the pain just some grace and some space to be what it is, to not think that there's a perfect way to do this, whether it's dealing with our own loss or supporting someone. When someone we really care about is in pain, that's a really tough position to be in. And there's no way for us to show up perfectly, but I promise that perfection has no place in a grief conversation and in supporting another person. If we can feel seen, if we can make others feel seen, and if we allow ourselves to just do it in the way that feels genuine and not worry about the particulars, we're going to have a really good shot at having a richer experience ourselves and also showing up for people that really care, that we really care about. Yeah.
Perfection has no place in a grief conversation. LisaMcFarland.com, thegriefgurus.com, coming to you soon in 2026 for the ladies, and eventually, perhaps, as time goes by, for the gentlemen as well. Lisa, thank you so much for squeezing this time in during the holiday season. I look forward to seeing you throughout the next year.
And if I can just say one more thing, Jason, I'm sorry for your loss of your clients, because that's heavy for your entire community. And I didn't say that when we first started chatting. So may you all find a place and a way to carry your grief while honoring those that are no longer with us.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank
So
you so
welcome.
much. And to you, a wonderful, slower day as you walk through this time as well. Bye for
Thank
now.
you.